Now I'd like to turn it over to our speaker, James Henry. He is the one who's running for president of this new movement of the CLC for the letter carriers. He is the leader of the CLC. The Lions and the Lioness are coming to take out Brian Renfro, who's going to be one and done. One and done, just like in basketball. Brother James, I'm going to turn it over to you, our National Vice President, to give his closing remarks. Brother James?
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers for a fantastic job in providing a lot of good information to our membership. Moreover, I would like to thank each and every one that is on this Zoom call here right now. I know we had close to 1,100 registered participants for today, and it may have exceeded that. I'll get the final numbers and we'll post that later after the Zoom call, but it is a phenomenal turnout, but it speaks to the heart, it speaks to your involvement, it speaks to what really matters here, and that is you. One of the things that I've constantly said here is that the union is not me. It is not your branch president. It is not anyone that resides at 100 Indiana Northwest Avenue, Washington, D.C. It is the rank and file letter carriers that are out there on the workroom floor each and every day. You're the ones that are the union. You're the ones that determine the fate of our craft. You're the one that determines yay or nay of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. As most of you may know that I'm a military man. I retired from the Marine Corps. And as a retiree, going into the Marine Corps, they made it very clear that when we entered into boot camp, that despite what your MOS, which is your military occupational skill is, at its base, you are a rifleman. That's why no matter what your job is, each and every single one of us have to go through basic training. Because your primary function, above all, is the defense of this country as a military individual. That correlates here to an NLC. It does not matter what your title is. It doesn't matter whether or not you are an alternate steward on the workroom floor. It doesn't matter if you're a branch president. It doesn't matter if the NLC vice president. It doesn't matter if you so happen to become the NLC president. At its core, we are all representatives. We are all should be acting in the defense and the representation of our letter carriers and our brothers and sisters. Full stop. No matter what, that is our first and foremost priority. The one thing is here is that people say, well, why James? Why is it that you, a sitting officer, have come out? This is not about any anti-Brian, anti-anyone else, but a pro-us. What is it about us that we deserve as letter carriers, what we demand as letter carriers? And as such, there is a mission that we all should have embedded in our heart. And that mission is here for me, is once I became a union activist, I found that that mission would give myself over to. That mission has been multifaceted. Chief among them are the preservation and the advancement of letter carriers, quality of life, contractual rights, dignity and respect on the workroom floor, and the rightful expectation of sound, just, and competent representation. To be committed to that representation. These principles, I believe, at minimum, should be inherent and placed in practice by all representatives of the NLC. The mission is you, as I said. It is not anything less than that. It is the rank and file letter carrier on that workroom floor. Carriers should be able to rely upon the NLC representative to protect their interests over the UPS. Shouldn't have to choose between spending time with their family or choosing to pay their bills by working an inordinate amount of hours. As it was stated earlier by Sister Kemitra, or President Kemitra, looks that carriers now are in a situation where if you don't work 12 hours or 60 hours a week, you will stand a real good chance of perhaps not being able to make or meet your basic needs. This union, the cornerstone of it has been that of letter carriers, in this particular instance, or union representatives, of having 8 hours of work, 8 hours of recreation, and 8 hours of rest. We should not have to choose between spending time with our family, our bodies breaking down, and paying our bills. Like I said, us as representatives, our first and foremost job is to work in the interest of our letter carriers. And this proposed tentative agreement, in my view, does not do that. Again, this is not about an anti-anyone, but about a pro-us. Letter carriers deserve and demand to be industry leaders in wages, benefits, and working conditions. And when we take a look at this proposed tentative agreement that we have, it falls woefully short of those expectations. In my view, failure is not an option. We don't get to sit on the sideline and make a bird's eye view of what's going on. We need to get into the ring. This is one of the reasons why we have this Zoom call today. This Zoom call was a call to action that every rank and file member have an opportunity to hear what it is that we believe is in the best interest of you and the advancement of our craft. When I say failure is not an option, we cannot allow the Postal Service to dictate terms to us as to what is acceptable, to give us crumbs, and that we're supposed to say, hey, chef, keep feeding me more of the same old, same old. When we look at this 1.3% general wage increase, that in and of itself is something that does not meet our economical needs. As it was aptly stated earlier, how letter carriers have endured all kinds of calamities, have endured all kinds of tragedies, have endured all kinds of workplace violence, have endured seeing their fellow workers die on the job or be injured to the point where they can't perform their duties. And yet, it is expected that we're supposed to just be okay with just getting by. When I say we should be the leaders in the industry of when it comes to wages, benefits, and working conditions, that means leaders, not just being on par. But when you take a look and you look, just casual observer can see on the news that you have other organizations that are comparable to us that are making far more than us. And we have done nothing but continue to fall further and further and further behind. And my brothers and sisters, I tell you that if you put your stamp of approval on this tentative agreement, you will disincentivize the Postal Service to provide you any more than what has been offered up to this particular point in time. There are those that says, well, this is kind of status quo. This is what's been happening. So what is the big deal? Well, times have changed. I don't know anyone, for the most part, on average, 10 years ago, having to pay $2,500, $3,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment. We didn't have carriers having to determine whether or not they're going to pay their health benefits and having to default going to an emergency room to be able to get that we offer. If you cannot afford to pay for them, they are essentially non-existent. We cannot be in a situation of accepting what has been offered to us. When I say that an injustice to one is an injustice to all, we say that very often as a union. It seems to be cliche, but for me, it's not a cliche. If one carrier is injured, then all are injured. And we have gone over this as a well-read book when we start talking about letter carriers not having what they need to have from the step C through O. When you have step P that's getting a projected amount at the top. But guess what? Even if that was to happen, that's if the sun, the moon, and the stars all line up. Those that's beneath them will still get a prorated amount of that when it comes to those COLAs. It is not acceptable. When we represent letter carriers, we represent the whole entire letter carrier craft. When I tell you CCAs, they don't pay no prorated dues. CCAs are a part of our craft. CCAs are to be taken seriously and represented on the same level as we are. They are our brothers and sisters. And as my sister Ethel Bibbs has said earlier today, that she's a church girl. I'm a PK, as they would say, a preacher's kid. I grew up in church. And when it's talking about the strong bear the infirmities of the weak. So until those CCAs get to where we are, we have an obligation, an affirmative obligation, to make sure that they are taken care of as well. They do the exact same job that we do. The exact same job. They don't do a less job, and like I said, and they don't pay prorated dues. We deserve to get more than what has been coming our way. The bottom line is that the mission is to ensure that all letter carriers have a livable wage, that all letter carriers have a safe and harmonious working environment, that we have benefits that we can rely upon to take care of us if we are infirm. The mission is to you. The mission is to reform this union, the restoration of dependable, competent, and reliable leadership. There is no universe that we should be making a case to our letter carriers and to our union brothers and sisters with the exclamation point about, but understand the plight of the Postal Service, understand the plight of the Postal Service. Well, what about the plight of my brothers and sisters out there? That some of them can't afford to put their children in daycare because their wages do not afford to it. Some get to a situation where they are perhaps subject to discipline because they have to defy their managers about working overtime because they have to leave to go home to get their kid or drive across town. Most of us cannot afford to live in the city in which we deliver in. That should not be the case. Letter carriers are and is America's best. When you take a look around, no matter whatever it is, I mean, we are essentially a pseudo first responder. I did a retirement some years ago, and I was talking to the letter carrier, and I had asked him, was he a service member? Were you? And you know what he said? He stuck his chest out at me and he said, yes, I'm a postal service. And that stuck to me because if you was there on that floor that day when he was talking to me, you would understand the pride that he had in being a letter carrier. He equated that to that of our armed forces. And I wasn't mad at him about it. Because guess what? More often than not, my 36 and a half years of representing letter carriers have provided me the opportunity to see that letter carriers more often spend more time trying to keep their job than do their job. That should not be the case. And so when it comes to this proposed tentative agreement, like I said, I have read this book and had quoted it before on the podcast. It's called The Profiles of Courage. When John Fitzgerald Kennedy wrote, the quote in there, the hottest spots of hell is reserved for those in a time of great moral crisis remain their neutrality. Well, my brothers and sisters, I will not remain neutral here. I understand that it's not political expedient to step out and be a resident officer. I understand that some would say, hey, well, let's not rock the cradle because we may not get more. We were talking about this fear monger, but I don't operate out of the spirit of fear. I don't stand on the sidelines. What I have said and what I will say now to you, and I'll close on this. Not only will I, but the concerned letter carriers, the CLC, we will not only fight for you, but we will fight with you. And this is an example of that. When Tom Sayers Branch and the other letter carriers came down to Washington for the rap session, we were right out there on the picket line with them, or with the informational picket, saying that this is unacceptable. So with that being said, I ask and I implore each and every one of you that are listening to my voice to organize your office. Tom gave you some very good techniques that you can use. Your voice has to be heard because you are the union. I put my pants on one leg at a time, like just each and every one of you. I'm no better than any of you. I'm just blessed to be in a position to have some influence. So again, my brothers and sisters, each one reach one, because we will not allow this to set us back. And some see this as a setback. But you know what? As they say, a setback is a setup for a comeback. And we're coming back strong. The roaring lions and lioness. God bless you.